Picture this: half of the world's uncontacted indigenous tribes could vanish within the next decade, according to a shocking new report. It's a crisis that's unfolding quietly in remote corners of the globe, far from the spotlight, and it's one that demands our immediate attention. But here's where it gets controversial. Are these isolated communities truly lost relics of the past, or are they modern societies deserving of full respect and protection? Let's dive into the details and uncover why this matters for all of us. Updated on October 27th, 2025, 7:15 a.m. EDT, CBS AP. From the lush, hidden depths of Brazil's Amazon rainforest to the dense jungles of Indonesia, some of humanity's most secluded groups are under intense pressure from encroaching roads, mining operations, and even drug smugglers. This unfolding emergency largely remains invisible to the public eye and lacks robust governmental safeguards. A recent study published by Survival International, a London-based group dedicated to defending indigenous rights, provides what experts describe as one of the most comprehensive assessments to date. It identifies at least 196 groups living in voluntary isolation across 10 nations, with the majority located in South American countries that share the vast Amazon basin. Unveiled over the weekend, the findings reveal that roughly 65% of these communities are endangered by deforestation activities, around 40% face dangers from mineral extraction, and about 20% are threatened by large-scale farming enterprises. These situations represent what I term quiet genocides. No camera crews or reporters capture the events, yet they are occurring right now and at an alarming pace. Explained Fiona Watson, Survival's Director of Research and Advocacy, drawing on her over 30 years of experience in Indigenous affairs. Politicians often sideline this issue because these groups lack electoral influence, and their lands are highly desirable for resource exploitation, like timber harvesting, mining, and oil drilling. Public discourse is further complicated by outdated perceptions. Some idealize them as mythical lost tribes, while others see them as obstacles to economic progress. And this is the part most people miss. It raises a heated debate about balancing human rights with development goals. Survival's analysis predicts that up to half of these populations could disappear in just 10 years unless authorities and corporations take decisive action. Understanding who these uncontacted peoples are, contrary to popular myth, these aren't ancient lost tribes stuck in a time warp. As Watson emphasizes, they are vibrant, modern societies that have chosen isolation after enduring centuries of brutality, enslavement, and deadly illnesses introduced by outsiders. They have no need for our interference, Watson noted. They're content in their forest homes, possessing profound wisdom that helps preserve these crucial ecosystems, vital for everyone's battle against climate change. The research indicates that over 95% of globally uncontacted peoples inhabit the Amazon region, with smaller numbers in Southeast Asia, South Asia, and the Pacific Islands. These groups sustain themselves through hunting, fishing, and limited agriculture, preserving languages and customs that existed long before modern countries formed. Think of them as living guardians of ancient knowledge. Why even brief encounters can prove fatal? Communities in self-imposed seclusion have hardly any interaction with external societies, stated Dr. Subra Bhattacharjee, the Director General of the Forest Stewardship Council, and a Bonn, Germany-based expert on indigenous rights. An ordinary cold that you or I might shrug off in a week could prove lethal to them, wiping out whole groups. Diseases aren't the only risk. Contact can shatter their ways of life and spiritual beliefs. Global laws mandate free, prior, and informed consent, or FPIC, for any projects on indigenous territories. To clarify for beginners, this means getting genuine, voluntary agreement from the affected people before proceeding, ensuring they're fully informed of impacts and have a say. When dealing with groups in voluntary isolation that we can't approach without endangering them, securing FPIC becomes impossible, Bhattacharjee pointed out. Without it, there's no legitimate permission. Her organization adheres to a firm rule: establish no contact, no entry areas. If safe consent can't be obtained, all activities should halt entirely to prevent harm. The Associated Press covered an incident last year where loggers met deadly resistance with arrows after trespassing into Mashco Piro lands in Peru's Amazon. Tribal leaders have warned that such confrontations are unavoidable when border areas lack oversight. Multiple prior clashes have been documented. For instance, in 2022, 2 fishermen were struck by arrows during an encounter with tribal members, resulting in 1 death. In 2018, American missionary John Allen Chow lost his life after attempting to reach a secluded tribe on India's North Sentinel Island, known for aggressively defending their isolation with bows and arrows. How these dangers have intensified over time, Watson, with her 35 years traversing the Amazon, explains that initial perils arose from colonial expansions and government-led development. During Brazil's authoritarian regime from 1964 to 1985, major highways were carved through the jungle with little consideration for resident populations. These routes drew in settlers like a magnet, she described, followed by lumber workers and cattle farmers, who brought armed conflicts and epidemics that eradicated entire villages. Peru's Indigenous Rights Federation, FENIMAD, reports escalating friction between loggers and tribes, urging stronger governmental intervention. A proposed railway in Brazil might impact 3 isolated groups, but organized crime presents an even direr threat. In countries like Peru, Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, and Ecuador, narcotics smugglers and illicit gold diggers have infiltrated deep into these territories. Even accidental meetings could spread illnesses like the flu. Their goal was to force interactions to save souls, which is extraordinarily risky, she said. Strategies for safeguarding these vulnerable groups. Experts agree that true protection demands tougher regulations and a fundamental change in global attitudes, viewing them not as historical artifacts, but as essential contributors to our shared planetary future. Key proposals include: first, authorities must officially designate and strictly enforce indigenous lands as inaccessible to exploitative industries. Bhattacharjee stresses the importance of careful mapping to pinpoint uncontacted territories, enabling protection from encroachers. However, this must be conducted remotely to safeguard the group's health and independence. Second, businesses and shoppers need to curb the financial incentives fueling destruction. Survival Study advocates for corporations to audit their supply networks, confirming that materials like precious metals, wood, and soybeans aren't harvested from indigenous areas. Grassroots activism and media exposure are crucial, Watson added. Much of the progress in acknowledging these people's rights has come from ordinary citizens and journalists. Lastly, it's imperative to acknowledge their broader significance. Apart from ethical obligations, these communities play a massive role in regulating the planet's climate. As climate pressures mount, our fates are intertwined. We succeed or fail as one, Bhattacharjee remarked. The varied governmental responses, international agreements such as the International Labour Organization's Convention 169 and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, uphold the right to self-governance and the choice to remain isolated. Yet, implementation differs significantly across nations. In Peru, lawmakers recently blocked a bill to establish the Yavari Mirim Indigenous Reserve, leaving vulnerable groups defenseless against timber operators and smugglers. Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva is working to restore safeguards eroded under Bolsonaro, increasing funding and monitoring efforts. Back in 2018, rare video footage captured what appeared to be the sole survivor of an isolated Amazonian tribe. Ecuador faced a ruling from the Inter-American Court of Human Rights earlier this year, condemning the government for inadequate defense of the Tagayari and Taramanane peoples in Yasuni National Park, who opt for seclusion. Watson cautions that political factions linked to farming and religious groups are pushing to undo recent advancements. advances from the past 20 to 30 years are at risk of reversal, she observed. In July 2024, images surfaced of the Mashco Piro tribe foraging on a Peruvian Amazon beach. A 2023 United Nations report from the Special Rapporteur on Indigenous Rights highlighted Peru's 2016 acknowledgement of the Mashco Piro and others utilizing lands leased for logging. It voiced worries about the overlap and the absence of demarcated territories, despite evidence of their presence dating back to 1999. What the latest report advocates, Survival International's findings, push for a worldwide no-contact approach. Legally recognizing isolated territories, halting mining, oil, and agricultural ventures in or near them, and penalizing offenses against indigenous communities. Watson identifies deforestation as the primary menace, with mining a close second. She cites the uncontacted Homgana Manuar on Indonesia's Halmahera Island, where nickel extraction for electric vehicle production is underway. Many assume electric vehicles are environmentally friendly, but mining firms are invading uncontacted lands, creating massive dangers, she pointed out. In South America, unauthorized gold mining in Brazil and Venezuela's Yanomami territories employs mercury, contaminating waterways and wildlife. The consequences are catastrophic, both for health and culture, Watson concluded. In Venezuela, Brazil, Amazon, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, tribe. Do you believe economic growth should take precedence over protecting these isolated tribes, or is there a way to balance both? Is the idea of saving souls through forced contact justified, or does it cross ethical lines? Share your opinions in the comments. Let's discuss this heated topic.